My name is Jonathan Goforth. Today we're going to talk about math questions and how to help you pass the real estate exam. A house sold for $350,000 with a sales commission rate of 7%. The listing broker received 50% of the total commission and the selling broker received 50%. How much would the selling salesperson receive if the selling broker kept 30% and gave 70% to the salesperson? So there's a couple of terms in here. If you're brand new to real estate, you have a listing broker and a selling broker. The selling salesperson is the buyer's agent. So when you see that term in there, selling salesperson, that's the buyer's agent. And the buyer's agent works for the selling broker, which is the buyer's agent's broker. And so the listing broker and the selling broker, typically in this example, are going to split the commission in a 50-50 split. In this case, the buyer's agent, who is that selling salesperson, is going to keep 70% of the commission. And so the very first thing we're going to do, we're going to find the total commission first. So let's find the total commission first. How do you do that? Well, this is what you're going to do every time you sell a house. First, we're going to take the sales price, $350,000 times 7%, which is, if you're using your calculator, 0.07. And so you take $350,000 times 0.07, and you get the total commission of $24,500. That's the total. But the listing broker gets 50% and the selling broker gets 50%. In this case, we're going to take it times half. So we take that commission, $24,500 times half, which is 0.5. And so each brokerage gets $12,250. Now, the salesperson gets to keep 70% of that $12,250. So you multiply 12,250 times 0.7, and you get $8,575. That is the amount of commission that the selling salesperson will get. And just like that, you've done a really good, pretty easy math problem. You'll love that because you're going to do that every time you get to sell a house. Let's read it together. If a borrower pays $2,100 in interest per quarter on a straight note of $140,000, the interest rate would be 8%, 14%, 6%, or 7%. So in a question like this, the first thing I want to talk about is what is a straight note? Now, this is why it's so important to practice lots and lots of questions, because this is where you're going to really learn. And so let's talk about what a straight note is, because it's important in this question. A straight note is it's a term loan, interest only. A great example of a straight note is a construction loan. Let's say a 6-month construction loan, that would be a straight note. And at the end of the term, all of the principal is due as a huge balloon payment at the end. And then leading up to it, you just have typically just interest until the term of the loan is finished. That's a straight note. So let's read this question again. If a borrower pays $2,100 in interest per quarter on a straight note of $140,000, the interest rate would be. So the very first thing that you need to do, the one thing I want to see stand out in your mind is that $2,100 in interest per quarter. Per quarter. That's what needs to stand out because interest rates are done annually, not quarterly. So the first thing we're going to do is change the interest per quarter to an annual amount. And so how do you do that? Well, the math right here, we have $2,100 times 4. And that's going to give us the total amount for the year, $8,400 in interest per year. And so all we do is take $8,400 in interest divided by $140,000. And that gets us 6%. And so that's your answer. The third one down, 6%. But let's say, here's where I'm going to just give some practical advice. You may sit there with that question and you might think, you know what? I don't really know which one to divide by which one. Is it 140,000 divided by 8,400? So let's say you do that by mistake because you're sitting there, you've got a little anxiety going on, and so you do that first. $140,000 divided by $8,400. And the answer to that is 16.67. Let's say you get that. Well, look at your choices. That's not an option, so you know that's wrong. And so divide it the other way. And you take the $8,400 divided by $140,000 and you get 6%. And then when you see the 6% as one of your options, you know that you got it correct. So what I would do on a question like this, check your work. This is what I tell my kids when we do math. Check your work. So right there, the very bottom line right there, take $140,000 times 6%. And what do you get? Well, thank goodness you get $8,400. And so you know 6% is the correct answer. Final answer. The final question for this video. Let's read it together. Lance sold his house and took back a note for $6,500 secured by a second deed of trust. He sold the notes for $4,875. This represents a discount of 15%, 20%, 25%, or 33%. So, the first thing we need to know, how much is that discount? So let's figure that. So let's just read that question again together. Lance sold his house and took back a note for $6,500, secured by a second deed of trust. He sold the note for $4,875. This represents a discount of. And so let's figure out how much the discount is. And so that part's pretty easy. $6,500 minus $4,875, and the discount amount is $1,625. So, the question we need to answer is, what percentage of $6,500 is that $1,625? And so, we take the $1,625 divided by $6,500 equals 0.25, and that is 25%. So your answer is C, the third one down, 25%. But again, let's say you're sitting there with some stress, and you sit there and you look at this question, and you think, I don't know what to divide what by. I'm going to totally get all these wrong. Well, let's say you screw it up. Let's screw this one up and do it backwards. And you take right there, below there to the bottom right, you do $6,500 divided by 1625, and your answer is 4. You get 4. Well, look at your answer choices. 4 is not an option. So you know, oops, I did it wrong. Let's try dividing it the other way. And that's where you come up with 25%. So if you get into this and you answer it with a wrong answer, you get an answer like there of 4, don't stress out. Just do it the other way. Divide it by the other direction and you'll get the correct answer.